Hello and welcome to the Health Detective Podcast by Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. We bring you interviews from people who have conquered the trickiest of health challenges using the Functional Diagnostic Nutrition philosophy and similar healing modalities. You're going to hear from experts who have been through the ringer with their health issues and yet managed to come out on the other side. You can always visit us at functionaldiagnosticnutrition.com, but for now, here is today's episode. All right. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Health Detective Podcast by Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. My name is Evan Transu, aka Detective Ev, and I will be your host for today's show, episode number 438 of the Health Detective Podcast. We have a repeat guest here, but you might not even realize that because she certainly was not on episode 438. I'll have to check while we're talking. It's probably back in the 100s or even before 100, so that'll be kind of cool to figure out. With that said, I'm still on my green screen background, so thanks for bearing with me. We are about only 8 days here from making the trek down to Texas, and then we'll have a new setup for you guys past Labor Day, so I'm looking forward to the podcast then. Two quick announcements, though, today outside of that. One, we still do have a handful of tickets to HICS. I've told you guys a million times. I will keep telling you a million times until it's no longer true. HICS is going to sell out. Jeremy has confirmed that with me. I think the VIP tickets are almost completely sold out. I think there's only like less than 5 of those left. So if you want some general attendance stuff, that's totally fine too, but those will sell out. I don't think it's going to make it past mid-September. So you can click on the QR code, or rather scan the QR code, sorry, if you are watching with us. If you're on audio, just check the show notes. And if they're there, that means HICS still has tickets. And if they're not, well, we will see you next year. We do have a code for it. It is Summer 30. You can get 30% off any tickets right now. And that's all capital letters, Summer, the number 30. So that's all one chunk of stuff, Summer 30. And I have to ask, I do have one other announcement, but I have to ask, is our guest today going to be at HICS, or are we not confirmed yet?
I'm just writing that down so I remember to do it, because I keep thinking, because I live here, so it just makes it go, oh, I'll do it later. But yeah, as you said, it's going to sell out and I don't want to miss out.
Awesome. I was about to say, yeah, it should be easier for you. We got to, all you got to do is drive. So awesome. We will see myself and definitely Debbie there. One other quick announcement is a fan favorite on the Health Detective Podcast, Brendan Vermeyer. You guys know him. He's one of our clinical advisors here, and he does some stuff with microbiome labs and has his own company. We are doing a Health Space Unmasked event with him in September. It's going to be on September 6th. If you don't know what HSU, or Health Space Unmasked, is, it's an event that we do the first Saturday of each month. It really only ends up being 10 times per year because we skip December. We usually end up skipping July as well. So there's only 10 speakers that we get to do this with throughout a calendar year. Brendan is going to be one of them, and his talk is all about the gut-brain axis and how we can understand it to master neuroinflammation. So if you guys want a ticket to that, go to fdntraining.com/HSU. HSUs are always free. That's kind of the best part. The replays are free as well, so make sure you're registered, and then you can get that stuff. They're usually about 2 hours with the Q&A, so if you want to be able to talk to someone that you normally have to kind of pay for to get direct access to, HSUs are great for that. fdntraining.com/HSU. All right, I was trying to do that faster today. I did great. I got through in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Let's read our guest's bio, and we will get into this. Debbie Potts is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, functional nutrition therapy practitioner, NASM certified personal trainer, and host of the Coach Debbie Potts Show. Please go check her out. She specializes in helping high-performing, driven individuals who feel stuck despite doing all the right things to feel their best again. Through her personalized FutureYou protocol and the WHOLESTIC, WHOLE, holistic method approach, Debbie helps clients uncover hidden stressors, restore metabolic health, and optimize performance so they can thrive as they age. Whether it's stubborn weight gain, fatigue, or burnout, Debbie empowers her clients to reclaim their energy, confidence, and vitality starting today. Welcome back to the Health Detective Podcast, my friend, and welcome to your first live Health Detective Podcast.
Yay. Thanks for having me on. I'm so excited to talk shop.
Yes, it is always great talking with you. I always start with the same question, so we will get to that, but I have to ask first, can you remind me, how long have you been an FDN?
I started in 2019. I finished in 2019. So awesome. 5 years.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, I was just wondering. Yeah. I feel like I've known you way longer than that, but that sounds about right. I mean, I only graduated in 2017, so I guess it has been a while now.
Wow.
Okay. I want to ask you, at least for the first question, the same one that I would have asked you before, just because it's been a while. No
Mhm.
one gets into this space typically because they're bored. Usually there's some things that have happened that kind of lead here. So I'd like
Right.
to know, like, what was going on in your life, either health wise or whatever it might be, that led to you looking into something like this functional healthcare stuff.
This stuff. Well, funny that we
Whether it was
do
FTN
all
first or something else.
we all have our own stories for sure that brings us to FDN. And mine was, of course, a personal story that I thought I was doing all the right things and just was doing the health nutrition and doing the strength training. I was doing the nutrition, but I was doing too much of everything, including a lot of Ironman races. I was competing at a high level for my age group. I always wanted to win was my goal, and did Ironmans. And then when you try to do Ironmans to qualify for Ironman Hawaii, sometimes you end up doing 2 Ironmans a year. And then in the off season, you might end up doing some marathons and some 50K trail runs. And so that would be your off season. So in 2013, I was air quotes because obviously we know now, it didn't just happen one day. I had no energy. I got really sick from drinking some alcohol at a retreat I was on, actually in San Diego, Torrey Pines, and just my whole life changed. Just everything was broken. And I couldn't figure out why. And of course, I did what every high performer does. Like, I want answers now. I want to get better tomorrow. And I have races to do and my life to continue. So just fix me now. And fast forward 5 years, even when I moved here, 2020, yeah, it took me like 8 years to figure it out. So became an FDN practitioner because no one could help me for being the person that I needed help with. And understanding functional medicine was helping, but they were just giving me supplements and treating different lab results with a supplement that it was low in or high in. And then, giving you a piece of paper and come back 3 months from now and let's see how you're doing. That didn't work for me. I saw 8 different doctors, functional medicine, naturopaths, also acupuncture, Chinese medicine, specialty, and, the regular doctors, and just couldn't get anywhere. But a lot of it was me standing in the way of my own self-healing and getting my own innate intelligence to fire up because I was looking for the quick and easy answer so I can get back to my life.
Sure. Yeah, you got to change the philosophy and paradigm first before any of this stuff can work, because it's not just a quick fix.
No.
And we'll get more into that today. I have to ask, and this is why it's fun interviewing people a couple of years after I interviewed them originally, because then I genuinely forget stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I didn't, the alcohol thing's not ringing a bell. So can you explain how that was different than, like, all right, if I drank too much alcohol, I would get sick. How is it different? And like, why do you even contribute it to the alcohol itself?
It was a big red flag. So I wrote a book called Life is Not a Race, It is a Journey. And this was a whole chapter in my book. This was a big aha because I was at my Todd Durkin Mastermind retreat, Torrey Pines. I was training for Ironman coming up. So I was out doing my sprint interval training. I was super serious with low carb, ketogenic diet in 2013, kind of before it was a thing. And so I was very strict. And so when you're out traveling, you just don't eat very much because you don't have the right foods you can eat from. So I wasn't eating. I was doing my sprint training, doing all this stuff. Then I went on this, we actually took a party bus to Temecula for wine tour for our dinner event. And I thought, all right, everyone's bugging me, loosen up. You're so uptight. Have fun. You're always out training and so strict. So I tried some, I think it was wine, and I hadn't really eaten. And long story short, I threw up everywhere. I was passed out on the bus on the back, and everyone went to this wine party. I blacked out. I was literally sick for a week. And ironically, the next morning, I had timed it before I flew out back to Seattle to go see Sean Croxton, and he was meeting with Reed Davis. And that morning, I was so sick. I was throwing up everywhere, and I was just got up, tried to go swimming and get my training schedule in that day. And anyways, it was a big red flag. Like, okay, that's weird. Why can't I drink alcohol? Not that I drank that much, but why was I so sick? And so that's more of an indication of what I learned over the years is about my liver being overloaded with toxic burden overload and all the things, looking at my genetics and all that I've learned more currently.
Okay, I get it now. That I mean, obviously that would be cause for concern. Like I've been sick 24 hours after drinking alcohol, but a week, that'd be really interesting. And it wasn't a lot, like you said, it wasn't actually much at all. So, and then you end up in Sean Croxton and Reed Davis's presence. I mean, that's about as good as it gets in terms of sales. Just throw Jen Maleka in there, and you're buying like 5 courses. You know what I mean? That's a power crew. So that must have been pretty cool though when you did find them and get to hear them talk about this. I'm assuming.
Well, it was funny. I was actually meeting with a gal in my mastermind group that was doing the Kalish method program. So it's like, oh, she needed a guinea pig for a case study. So I signed up with her. But at the time, I was into podcasting, listening to Sean Croxton. I loved his interviews with Reed Davis and going over that. And so I wanted to meet Sean when I was in town. And it just ironically, them together going over their chalkboard videos they used to do back. And this is 2013. So it was a while ago. So yeah, it was funny. It
Awesome.
was a process.
Wait. Okay, so see, that confused me. So that was 2013 that you heard it. I thought you said you became an FDN in 2019.
Exactly. Timeline. Background check. 2013, I had the big red flag that I had the breakdown from the alcohol and got help with the Kalish method. Was the very beginning of my journey. And at the time, that's when Reed and Sean Croxton were coming in my life. And then I did not become FDN practitioner until 2019, but I kept trying. As you can ask Jen Maleka, she kept I kept saying, I need to do it. And until I went through my own journey of no one helping me. And then I understood what FDN practitioner was about. Because at the time I was a personal trainer, runner of my own fitness studio. I had a huge business to run, and stress of that was the other part of the story. But it is funny. Actually, I didn't realize that till I just said that all that's kind of started the process. That 2013 March was when I had my adrenal exhaustion, metabolic chaos breakdown. And Reed actually came into my life. But until I figured out my path was 2019.
You know what? I must have heard. See, now I'm piecing together bits and pieces because I always thought that you were like 2013. Like that's why I asked before. I'm like, oh, you've been in FDN for a while. 2019 is a while, but I was like, that's kind of surprising. So now I'm connecting this all together and remembering here. So how did you learn to manage all of this stuff together? Because it's not like you've given up on the physical fitness side. I mean, I've met you in person. You got like jacked forearms. Like you look like someone who takes care of themselves.
This is like in Popeye. My forearms are not jacked.
I'm very impressed with it. Well, and let's be honest, like a lot more. I think you look great. And I think you definitely look like someone who is athletic. And I'm not surprised that you've done the stuff that you've done. So how do you learn to manage all of it though? Because I would assume that for someone doing that level of like endurance training, I mean, that's not even just a goal, that's a whole lifestyle. So it's not like you could just stop that all of a sudden. You'd be losing your identity almost. Like this is who you are. So how did you learn to try to integrate all of this together while still maintaining your dang health?
That was it right there. My identity was doing Ironmans. Everyone would ask me every single day, when is your next race? So when we go into health investigation and working with clients on the other side, and then it's more timeline and understanding what happened over the years as we're diving into now, things I didn't realize, but that was a big thing. My identity was Debbie, the diesel engine, the nickname Debbie Diesel, and how I would always be racing and training. But I obviously didn't manage it well because I had this breakdown because I owned this fitness studio that was at the end got to be $7,000 a month rent because it was downtown Bellevue. The rent went up every year. Bellevue, Seattle, Microsoft, Medina, very up high-end area. And the rent kept going up. So when we talk about chronic stressors externally, mine just kept accumulating. Overtraining, over racing, stress running your own brick and mortar fitness studio, running it all yourself. Financial stress is just that beaker of stress kept filling up. Too much.
Okay. Yeah, $7,000 a month would not be fun right now. And then I'm thinking like, yeah, wow. I mean, well, now because people are almost like a little more used to this idea, not even just in our health space, but like kind of buying packages, things just cost more, like there's a general acceptance of it. I'm trying to think about like $7,000 at that time a month and then having to get the clients to keep that going. And I'm assuming, could be wrong, but I'm assuming you did not have like a Jen Maleka method of selling packages back then. So were you mostly going like just session by session or just a handful of sessions bought all at once?
Well, my fitness studio was 5,000 square feet. So it was big. And I had I thought I'd be the first person to do TRX all-in-one fitness circuit training. And I did Pilates and yoga and tried to have it all there. And I had sauna and acupuncture and massage and all that. So I had classes, 50-minute all-in-one classes, and I had trainers. But it's really hard to make enough revenue from fitness to do that. Right. Thankfully, someone was looking out for me because the building was going to get torn down. And finally, I got kicked out because they were tearing it down because I kept renewing my lease October 1st, 2019. And so I was thinking that was a good choice to finally have that happen because of what happened in 2020. And then I was already in the process of being an FDN practitioner that year. So my focus was just transition out of that fitness world into more of a holistic coaching people, doing it all together.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, it's so unfortunate for what happened to people's businesses, right? My parents had a small restaurant here because I'm visiting them right now, like I said. But for us FDNs, it was like, we got so lucky with the positioning that we were in because Reed was already teaching the online thing before it was fully cool. So we already had a platform for this. We had the online learning side too, so you could do it at any time. People had a lot of extra time during COVID. Some of us used it wisely. Some of us used it not so wisely. I was 50-50, depended on the day during COVID for sure. And then, yeah, it's really cool to see how our practitioners still were able to grow during that time as well. So I'm glad that you had those events happen, at least when they did timeline wise. I want to transition a bit to the FutureYou thing because either I don't remember that from last time or that's relatively new. So I'm sorry if I'm just not remembering. But that just see, I remember that being almost like, I feel like we had a whole different topic of discussion last time that was more centered around the fitness side. And now looking into this, it's like, whoa, there's so much here with the mindset. So I really want to talk about what the FutureYou thing is.
I'm getting older.
So am I.
So it just happened this year. So as I've been doing FDN work the last 5 years and trying to do this full time, I started to see patterns with clients not getting better. And then my own story, my own history, my own education, combining it all together. And then my dad passed away 3 years ago. And then I started to see my mom age. She's 84 now. My dad passed. He just turned 80. So he's 80 and a half years old when he passed. And how no one could help him the way I would like to see help is just everyone's treating body parts, the kidney guy, the cancer guy, the heart guy. No one saw the body as a whole. And then working with clients that get labs and we give them supplements, you don't really get anywhere. So what I've come across is, are we doing everything we can do to improve my future self now? So if I'm a health optimizer, trying to take ownership of my health today before I have those red flags, before I'm just so struggling with chronic fatigue and weight gain and brain fog, cognitive decline, why can't we get people motivated to start visualize, how do I want to look when I'm my parents' age? What do I want to be doing when I retire? How do I want to be showing up to life every day? So I think it's having lost a parent really shifts your mindset and watching your other parent survive on their own and age. And think about, okay, getting closer to retirement, what do we want to be doing? How do we want to be traveling and exploring the world and taking these bike trips and all that? Well, what am I going to do today to be my best self then? And I have a pet peeve of people blaming the aging process. Like, oh, I can't do this because I'm getting older. It's ridiculous. So it's more teaching people, let's embrace aging process, understand what changes as we age, and we can do something about it. We can add things in and train differently, eat differently, supplement differently, test and not guess what we're missing, and figure out what's the best program for you. And so I came up with the FutureYou program just this past spring, and how that's really my purpose, I feel, is to help people visualize and set yourself up for success when you are 70, 80, 90. Now.
I know it sounds funny, but I think it's just because I spend so much time with people older than me, whether it's in my career and just my life. That's just how it's always been for me. And I think that's good. I think I get to see things that a lot of other people don't always see. And I kind of jumped right into the career world. I didn't do like the bar hopping thing at, 19, 20 years old. Well, I guess you should be 21, right? And the reason I'm bringing this up is because as I know people that are older than me are going to get almost like mad when I say this, not literally mad, but be like, oh, come on. But I don't know how else to say it. I really have thought like this. When I turned 27, which was only a few years ago, I this is like ignorance is bliss. There was something about 27 where I realized, oh, for the first time, my IQ is not going up. My brain's not developing anymore. I'm not getting stronger naturally. I'm not getting taller naturally. I don't look younger naturally. Like everything is on this slight decline. Now, of course, especially at this age, if I keep strength training and doing what I need to do, I wouldn't even notice this probably for another 10 years at least. But the point is, I realized, wow, I am not growing anymore. I am in this other phase of life. And that is actually the phase of life that lasts a lot longer for most of us, right? Assuming that we live to a normal age or normal life expectancy. And there's been a lot of great things that have happened. One, it made me start doing things that I wasn't doing before. So I always wanted to do mixed martial arts. I always pushed that off. I started right around 26, 27 officially because I said, I'm not getting any younger. This is not going to get easier. If I start doing this at 45, you can do that, man. There's people in the gym all the time that are starting MMA at 45. It is going to be harder than if I start at 26, just like 26 was going to be harder than if I started at 15. So I started to realize that. And then as I got into a wonderful sport that I know that you love, the wonderful elite sport of pickleball, I start to see a variety of people there. And this has probably been the time that I've seen the biggest discrepancy in those who are planning for their future self versus those that haven't. And no judgment either way. It's just, I'll play one day with, you'll play with 20-year-olds, whatever. That's nothing special. They probably had a tennis background. They whooped me. But then you'll play with like a 55-year-old that's crazy athletic, can run the whole court, whatever. And then the next day I might play with someone who's 45 or even sometimes 40, and they have a huge issue with the lateral movement. They can't even get to the line that fast. And it's not a big court in pickleball, right? And so I am glad to see those things, again, never out of a place of judgment for the person that's not doing the things that I would like to be able to do, but because I do realize that if you don't take care of yourself very intentionally, the rug can kind of get stripped under you pretty easily. And I feel like, again, the older that we get, the harder it is to start. So you're suggesting for people, we got to start before this actually becomes super tough.
Ideally, I wish people would do that. And that's kind of why I was focusing always on my background as endurance athlete, my personal story. But I struggle to find those people that are motivated to be fit and healthy from the inside out at a cellular level. I talk about on my podcast. And most people just think, oh, because I exercise, I'm invincible. And it's actually the opposite. I find most people that are training and competing, especially in endurance events, are not very resilient. They're not healthy on the inside. And looking at my own labs, and I was just reviewing all of them, getting ready for this call, that is like, wait, I had mitochondrial stress, oxidative stress back when I first started testing in 2013, and I still have that. And so it's figuring out, oh, what are some red flags we can educate people on that they just might not even pay attention to realize, yeah, that's something I should probably investigate and have someone help guide me to figure out what I should do to be my best self and not wait. But it's tough.
I was about to say, I don't know if you necessarily have an answer for this, but like, are there any tips out there for people that like maybe would that person even be listening to our podcast right now? Because I feel like most of them that are listening have had to kind of have a wake up call. And I am just as guilty of this. I feel like I needed to be sicker than most people who come on this podcast before I was like, oh yeah, maybe I should actually change something or look at my diet or whatever. So how do you actually get people to wake up to this? Or is it just like, hey, I have to sift through 100 people before I find the one or two that can think far ahead enough to say, I want to change something here?
Yeah, I think people just they have to, I think they just come to you when they are struggling and you're their last resort. I've tried everything else. No one's helping me. I need to get someone that's going to look at more of a root cause approach and do the deep dive investigation that we do and figure out what's actually going on under the hood and in your life to figure it out. But that's the sad thing. I find people don't wait, don't take ownership now, and they just wait until they're really struggling.
Yeah, we live in a world now in a variety of ways, finances, education, whatever, that actually rewards long-term planning and thinking. But if you think about it, and I do believe that we're spiritual beings, but I sometimes strip us down to the biological side. If you just go from a biology perspective, long-term thinking is actually not always beneficial, right? If in nature we were just running around at 20 and saying, you know what, I could mate with my partner, but I think I'd like to settle down at 40 or 35. That's not beneficial to our species. What we wanted to, or what nature wanted us to do, is act impulsively and just deal with whatever happens later. So now we live in this world, though, whereas if I don't act like that, I might not have my finances in order at retirement. I might have a lot of life that I live, but not living it optimally. There is a huge
Mhm.
difference between someone who
Mhm.
is fit into their 60s and 70s and how much more they get out of life than someone who pretty much checked out of the gym and any physical activity when they were 25, 26 years old. I know plenty of people in my life, the second that high school or college was no longer a thing, even if they were very athletic and played sports at that time, they don't do anything anymore. And I can only imagine how long it takes before their body is not going to be thanking them for that, right? A little rest is good after many years of beating yourself up, but I don't think it's supposed to be permanent. So um, it's kind of tricky. And I think it's a skill that people need to gain. Another skill that people need to gain that in your future youth thing is this idea of learning to balance the intuition side with these amazing things that we have in labs and all that kind of stuff. And I
Mhm.
feel like on paper, because that's where I read this, right? It's one of the things that you submitted. That can almost sound, unless someone's already into it, that can kind of sound like cheesy. It's like, why would
Yeah.
I do intuition over biofeedback? Now, I fully believe that, but this is another thing. I don't know how to get someone tapped into that. So how do you help
Mhm.
them kind of learn to reactivate, if you will, that intuition, let alone trust it?
That's where it almost comes in handy to run the labs first and give them evidence. Because if you get people that are the high performer, type A driven, that think they know it all, if you give them evidence like, here, we're not getting it all right. Here's some big clues, and these all connect together. There's a pattern, and I see how we can put the missing pieces of your puzzle back together again, correlating all that data with your symptoms and figuring out. But it's showing them that, then teaching them in a way that's simple, that we need to be resilient. And I'm starting more with north to south, that we need to work on our vagus nerve, as it's connected to all this, and you can't heal and repair if we're in that fight or flight sympathetic state. So just simple, I find, teaching people what that even means, because everyone's already wearing Oura rings, tracking the heart rate variability, and they have no freaking clue what it even means. So I'm on a mission to help understand, what that number is. There's more to it. If we can look at the breakdown of it and understand, it's not just if you're recovered or not, there's so much more to it as it connects to our parasympathetic digestion system. So if we can learn that and learn how to use those biofeedback markers we already are getting, because we followed some trend and popular thing because everyone else is doing it, but let's understand how to use that as a tool to your advantage to improve how you age day to day.
Got it. All right. So I like that you use the labs first. And then I know I've got to always specify this because, Debbie, we have people that are fresh into the course that choose to watch the podcast, which is great. And we're glad you guys are here. I just never want to confuse you either. Debbie, like she said, was exposed to FDN in 2013 and utilizing at least some labs or trying them on yourself in some way.
Mm.
FDN you did in 2019. So you've been doing this for, a handful of years, and you might not use the exact foundationals that FDN uses all the time or teaches in the course. You might have found that for your clientele, shifting that around a little bit is better. So assuming that's the case, I'd like to know, like, if someone works with you nowadays, are there a standard set of labs that you typically go to, or is it kind of more pick and choose?
So, not to assume, you know what assuming means, so don't assume. But I do the DRAS protocol, because even though you might change what labs as we get going from what we learn in FDN, and might adjust our core labs, and that's changed from after when I started, they changed them a little bit too, is looking at more of building the foundations up while waiting for the labs. So looking at the labs, I think is helpful, but working on the nutrition, the sleep, the exercise that might need to be toned down, the recovery, and getting the basic supplements while we're waiting for the lab test. I think that is the essential part. The other part I want to add in, I learned about Reed and Sean, but I didn't realize that was my path until later on, because I did see, I don't know how many naturopaths in Seattle, and so many different doctors. And I just kept getting the same way until I started hearing more at FDN, and then I went to their conferences, like, oh my gosh, I need to be that person, because I didn't ever think at the time, oh, I can do that. So I think it takes, again, going back to a lot of us have our own stories to find our purpose. Now we're following our purpose. I identified that from my own journey. So it's probably, God, we're going deep. I didn't realize any of this before. I didn't realize I saw Reed and Sean that next day. That was the starting, but I probably didn't know that was my purpose until I had to go through my own journey of not getting help I needed for 5 years. And then I was like, I need to do FDN. And then I had to figure out financial goals, how to make it work, and do a monthly payment plan, and knowing I was closing my fitness studio, and this was my purpose. And it took me years to kind of figure out, how am I going to exit this one career and move into this other career and combine all this together. But it's probably just, I need to find my purpose.
Sure.
I just had a sorry. I just had to share.
Well, all of that was great. I'd still like to know what labs you typically utilize with
Okay, so I answer your question. So I do the GI map often, and I do like to do organic acids test. It depends on the person. I love doing our blood chemistry analysis on everyone, because that's what people, for at least get started, if you can't afford it, do that in the MRT test. If you can't afford that, we do just a food elimination, start going to that intuition part. But the blood chemistry assessment, I love getting clues from that, because that's a good starting. A GI map and organic acids test, the oats, and a Dutch test I find is beneficial for people. I've gone into some other ones, like looking at different GI tests, and I find GI map is easy to get the information. Other ones might have like 50 pages of stuff. It gets overwhelming. And then I have tried, like on myself, the Zoomers from Primert, and did a wheat Zoomer test because I really wanted to know that information. So I have done that for some people.
Nice. I like that you mentioned the blood chemistry thing too. That's been a common theme that's been coming up recently, it seems, on the podcast. And I think that's one thing where if you guys were ever going to do any of our advanced courses, because you don't need to be an FDN even to do this, just take that to get some understanding of it. Almost all of your clients are going to have blood work. The vast majority of them that have insurance will be able to get some useful blood work covered by insurance. Now, as FDNs, we probably want cooler panels that are not always going to be necessarily covered just because you ask your doctor for it. But the fact that like we have this thing that, again, if you're insured, you're going to have access to blood work, and it is very cheap, usually just the price of the copay. And then you can analyze it from this functional perspective. I think that's pretty powerful. There's more things out there. That's why we utilize these other labs. But that to me has always just been a no-brainer one. Like, why would I not at least get some basic blood chemistry into my knowledge base? Because every single person, for the most part, is going to have blood work.
That's my go-to. And especially if people are struggling financially, you can still help them a ton. And just working on the foundations. We know everyone needs liver support. We know everyone probably needs to work on nutrition to balance their blood sugar, support the stressors, the nervous system, doing the breath work, doing all the things that they can do for lifestyle habits. But the blood work can give you a lot of clues and insight, like, oh, we should probably investigate and run some labs if we don't see a shift, and say we did this foundation work for 2 months, and then maybe you should, save some money up and run these labs. But a lot of people might not be able to drop the money for labs. And if they really need help, at least I can give them something to get started, and then go, okay, we're not getting better. Let's run the rest of the labs. And we don't want to do ideally one at a time, as we know, because we get insights from 2 or 3 labs, even if you can do the 5 different ones, and get so much more information, really personalize the program and not do the guessing, test and not guess, that I love.
I didn't want to derail us, because you did bring this up, and I wanted to get to this in the podcast overall. So I will shift us a little bit to the exercise side of things, because there was something that you mentioned. It was along the lines of like, very often, maybe some of your clients might be doing too much. This is something that I still struggle with, because when I first got my hormone test results back in 2017, when I was 21, I was in the very early bit of the exhaustive phase of HPA axis dysfunction. And I'll never forget Brandon Mole. He told me, he's like, I would actually really recommend, kind of just walking for a week, like taking some time to just chill out. And I was like, oh, that's stupid. I'm 21 years old. And sure enough, though, when I did that, I actually felt significantly better right around the 6 to 7 day mark. And I don't mean better in terms of like all my health symptoms were resolved. I just meant like energy. I woke up and wanted to go do things as opposed to feeling like I needed to go do things or had to set the alarm to force myself out. So even now though, I thankfully am able to do a lot of physical activity again, but I do find, maybe I just don't want to accept it. I do find that I have trouble stopping until my Aura Ring, like readiness score or whatever, shows, hey, dude, you got like 8 hours of sleep, but you were in the 70s or 60s, even worse. So I'm not recovering well. And then I'll have to take a few days off or go and go back again. So how do you help people get to a place where maybe they're not just relying on crappy scores one night to be like, yeah, maybe it's time to take some rest, because I feel like I'm not good at that personally.
So that's where we combine those markers you're getting from your data, your aura, which is a ring on your finger or the light on the back of your watch. We're using that and combining it with how do you really feel? Let's do a body scan check and see how you're feeling. What do you do after your workout? How is your recovery? How is your sleep hygiene routine? So there's, we recover when we're sleeping, getting the right nutritional therapy, timing the food after we work out to help repair and rebuild. And so there's a lot to it. So it's more looking at, okay, that's one piece of the puzzle if we're seeing you're not recovering, but also are you not feeling good? Because the data on your watch might be giving clues to something else. And so we want to combine that with whole conversation. That's why you can't just do stuff online. Ideally, you hire a practitioner to help guide you course correct, even with this information, because we might just be relying too much on a number on a watch and not actually pay attention to how we feel. Because sometimes it might not be right. And then for females, it might change based on your hormone schedule. And so it's really looking at putting those together. But then to answer your question is looking at your workout intensity. I do Pinoy metabolism testing. I do people's resting metabolism and exercise test. Are you actually training in the right zone where you're doing zone 1, 2 and using fat for fuel versus are you really doing intervals? So that's where I combine my other background skill set and help people figure out how should you train, because most people train wrong and they do too much of the tempo zone 3 out of 5 zones. They don't do the easy workouts and they don't really do intervals. All of it's actually tempo hard, but not too hard workout. That it's what Stacy Sims always says, is too hard to be easy and it's too hard to be easy. I said that, whatever. You know what I mean? I said that wrong. But you know what I mean? It's just, I think it's looking at, are you recovering, repairing? Do we need to structure your workout that you're doing the walk, how you place those workouts, what time of day, are you optimizing sleep? That's what the whole dress protocol is about, is figuring out that personalization, that exercise is not by itself. It's impacted by the sleep, by the nutrition, by the stress management. So it's the combination of the dress all together to optimize your exercise performance.
Yeah, it seems like a simple thing to the average person. It wouldn't to you, of course. But one thing that killed me the last year in North Carolina, which I actually had to make a real consideration for this when we moved next time to make sure I was good to go. I'm not going to quit pickleball. I love it. This is the other thing too. I don't want to go on a side tangent with it, but I think some people over-exercise for different reasons. There's definitely people that have this almost like neurotic thing about it. Like they feel like they're not doing enough and they have to do it. I'm not that way. I'm neurotic, but not in this sense. I enjoy physical activity. I don't enjoy all physical activity, but at this point now, I generally speaking like the mixed martial arts. I love pickleball. I love strength training. So I want to do these things all the time. I would strength train 7 days a week if I could find a way to do that with all the other things. It just gets to a point where I don't have 4 hours every single day to do all the physical activity I want to do. And even if I did have the time, usually the recovery would not be so good. But what killed me in North Carolina is the only way that I could get play that was at my level, not that I'm so good, I just mean for my specific level with pickleball, was like 6 to 8:30. And it was 20, 30 minutes away. And what started last year, Debbie, is like, listen, I'll just do it a few times while I'm getting adjusted here, became 2 to 3 nights a week for an entire year. And so that's, when you break that down, it's 150 times, right? So it's like, wow, okay, well, no wonder my sleep was worse in North Carolina than it was probably at any other time in my adult life ever since I've gotten into this FDN stuff. Because I'm literally doing 2.5 hours of exercise under bright lights indoors and then driving 30 minutes home. And then, hey, I just worked out hard, so I'm going to have something to eat, where normally I would stop eating a couple of hours or a few hours before bed.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of messed me up, but I have to move somewhere now that I can go play at 8 to 10 in the morning, or 7 to 9 in the morning.
I have a friend who said the same story. So I think it's pickleball, and it's kind of similar to children, high schoolers I know in Seattle would play soccer at 9 o'clock at night when they have to go to school the next day, because that's only when soccer fields were available. Now it's for pickleball for adults. I know she'd play at 9 o'clock at night. I'm like, you go to bed at 8 usually. How are you playing pickleball? Oh, I love it. I love it so much. I got to play. I can't sacrifice my pickleball for my sleep. So that is a funny new challenge for people.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's a good problem to have. I personally would rather have the problem of enjoying the various physical
Yeah.
activities that I do so much that I want to keep doing them.
Uh-huh.
But it's something to reflect on nonetheless. So, all right, with about 10 minutes left, not a hard stop, but just roughly 10 minutes, I want to talk about who specifically you serve. Yes, we mentioned it in the bio in the beginning, but there's so many people
Mm.
that, maybe skip me doing ads, or they
Mhm.
tuned in a little late with us. So just to be very clear, who is like your ideal client? And I always like our guests to shout that out, because they get to hear from practitioners all the time.
Mm.
So there's always these people that all of a sudden they book in with one of our practitioners. And I can't help but think it must be because they found someone who described
Yeah.
them when they described
Uh,
their ideal client. So who
yeah.
is that for you?
I find as it's more the middle age, they're trying to do all the right things and not just focusing on women, but men as well, middle age, that are just struggling, trying to get results with what they are doing now. And they can't seem to get help from other people because they might just be treating the symptoms and not looking at the whole person, and really looking at all the other elements that impact our wellness, and looking at the people that like, I'm doing everything to lose weight. I cannot lose weight, or I have chronic fatigue, and I'm exercising. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and I'm optimizing my sleep. I still can't figure it out. So it's more those I'm finding more complicated, because I'm getting more curious as I get older and going down so many rabbit holes, and really looking at toxic burden overload, mold toxicity, looking at the vagus nerve, how it gets toxic, and then how everything else shut off below, and really looking at how many people are on these medications they get from their doctors, antidepressants, PPIs. I've just been on a rant about stomach acid and how important it is, and how that correlates with nitric oxide and digestion and parasites. And it just, people are getting the wrong type of help and not looking at the person as a whole. So I find it's more those people that have thought they're trying to get help and trying to get better on their own, and they're seeing doctors, seeing naturopaths even, and they're just treating the symptoms, not treating the person. I will add too, I think a lot of people are doing their own research. I get a lot of people that are over consuming information on these YouTube videos, on platforms as podcasts and social media, that they are self-diagnosing themselves, and they're trying all this different stuff. So I've gotten clients that are doing that, and you got to go back to basics. Your nervous system is not working. Your liver is totally congested. You don't have the right bile flow. You can take all these longevity mitochondria supplements and all this stuff, but nothing's going to work until you go back and work from the base level, the foundation, and then we can start. But there's an order of operations. There's timing for everything, and you want to work north to south and figure out what that is for you. Might look different than someone else.
It's kind of interesting what you brought up about the information overload. I know that you mentioned many things there, but that kind of stuck out to me because,
One thing.
well, I'm thinking when I went through this myself, and, I'm on Dr. Google or whatever, and like there was maybe like one or two best-selling health books that everyone knew about, and that was it. The rest were like more fringe. And it was only 10 years ago, really. I mean, maybe 11 now, when I first started doing this. But now, because of how popular this is, and all these people out there on social media are talking about it in some way or another, I guess what I'm getting at is, I always knew back then that even though I was learning some valuable information, I always felt that, I need to find the person or the system to, get me all the information that I needed, which is not necessarily 100% accurate, but that was my goal. I was trying to find someone. That's why I went to San Diego, right? And I just kept going to these health meetups until I saw Jen Maleka giving a talk. But yeah, I could picture nowadays, if you were even just listening to this podcast 3 times a week, let alone all the other ones out there, you could get this idea in your head, or maybe I could just go do this on myself. And I do think that if you truly took some of the habit recommendations that all of our guests recommended, your life would be significantly better. That's why we do this. Don't just do it to hear ourselves talk. But if you are severely ill and dealing with, complex chronic issues, like, I was sick for over 10 years, even as a young man, super young man, like 5 years old till 18 years old, you can get better through the lifestyle stuff. In fact, that's going to be like what gets you the bulk of the way better. But usually there are some things that are going to come up on the labs that, worst case, you're going to be so much better that you knew, or so much better off knowing about that now so that you can address it a little bit more directly. And the best case scenario is like, that was something that you needed to address to actually get to the next level of healing. So for myself, I was eating organic wheat, for 5-6 years before I ever actually like quit the stuff. I needed to know that I had a legitimate immune response to wheat, right? That was something that I needed through testing to eliminate that from my life. So there's more examples than that, but that would just be one where I thought I was doing the right thing. I had new information. I figured out, I'm okay because that's organic. But in the reality, like, my body didn't care if it was organic wheat or not organic wheat. It was still having an allergic reaction to it, an immune response to it. Just like if someone ate organic peanuts versus regular peanuts, but they had a peanut allergy, that doesn't change things for them, right? Their body obviously hates it either way.
Yeah, it's funny. That reminds me of Whitney taught me that if you can't do wheat, guess all those people doing athletic greens and other type of greens with wheat grass. That there's some things you may not know, that you're consuming that food that's adding fuel to your fire that you don't know, that you think is doing a good job, but actually it's creating more havoc than you're not even aware of it.
Yes. So you've obviously worked with people for many years. As an FDN, it's been about 5 or 6, but you've been a coach in some capacity for a while. So I would like to know now, just any cool client testimonials or transformations that you have, to the degree that you're able to share. I know that there's a privacy thing, but I'm always kind of amazed by the interesting stories that our practitioners have. So is there anyone that like really stands out, of someone coming to you? They're stuck. They've been through all this cycle of trial and error, going to these different practitioners, and then Debbie Potts was the one who could help them.
Yeah. Well, a couple ones, big ones that came up that they couldn't figure out what was wrong. They actually had 2 people that had celiac and no one figured it out. And I had no idea. I wasn't a celiac expert. They're my first people. I'm like, oh my gosh, these are showing up positive. So that was big, and helped them figure that out and help them heal and repair their gut and rewire the nervous system. And that was a big thing. Other people with mold exposure, really getting rid of the moldy environment, cleaning it up, figuring out how to rebuild and repair their body from that exposure, and just giving them the tools how to avoid that again, and what to do if that happens. Get it kind of more tools in their toolkit, because we're always going to be exposed to these toxins and mold exposures when you travel, and hotel rooms, they're always moldy, Airbnbs. So I think those are some big ones. And the other ones are just getting people to realize they just needed to reset their gut and their liver, and a lot of people don't have a gallbladder, sadly. And that's like, okay, did you really need that taken out? We just fixed all this beforehand, but someone said, oh, it's not working, let's take it out. I've had a couple people with that area. And so learning no one taught them what to do differently after they got their gallbladder taken out. It's amazing. It's like, okay, they just took it out and didn't give you any corrections, take ox bile or something to support fat digestion and understand the role of bile in your body. No, they just removed it. So I think, just helping people in all those different areas. I don't just have special niches, just those people that are struggling and just can't find that person that's going to spend that much time really researching and being that health investigator. Because I'll spend hours on someone and start to see it all, and putting in even their genetics and looking at that, and then looking at what they're doing and their stressors and their lifestyle and their timeline, and really putting it all together.
I think you've just inspired me. I can't do it by myself, but to do a full podcast on the gallbladder thing, because for those that are out there that do not have one, please take a second to look into what Debbie just talked about with the ox bile thing. I mean, it is Dr. Jack Kruse, interesting guy. I think he's brilliant, though, and he's worth citing or quoting, rather, for certain things. He talked about how human beings are the only animal smart enough to invent artificial light and dumb enough to live under it. And I almost think about it the same way sometimes with these organ removals. It's like we're the only animal smart enough to figure out a way to cut ourselves open and remove one very specific part, and then dumb enough to be like, yeah, that's probably okay. We'll just take out this gallbladder. You'll be good. You'll be fine. It wasn't that important. It's like, it's kind of amazing that we can do both at the same time.
It's so common. And as I said earlier, how many people are on PPIs? It is absolutely insane. And I researched online, how long are you supposed to be on? What did the research in medical history when they created these PPIs? And it was 2 months. People have been on them for like years. And they just renew these prescriptions. So I'm learning all about the prescription world as I get more clients on a load of prescriptions, and they're just not understanding it's all related while you have this metabolic chaos, and how important that stomach acid that has a purpose as well as your gallbladder. And they all kind of work in order of operations, creating this metabolic harmony, I say. And one's out, the whole system's screwed up.
Right. Well, and that, oh my gosh, that's like par for the course with a lot of the pharmaceuticals. My thing's more the mental health side. It's like these benzodiazepines, like Xanax, Klonopin, all this stuff. They were always meant for short-term use. And people get mad at me for this in the functional space. I think as someone who has suffered with panic attacks and like literal debilitating fear, I support those drugs being used as they were intended, because it has helped me be able to do things that I never thought were possible. I used it for initial exposure, and then we stopped using it for that situation. But when we are throwing like a teenager on this for multiple years at a time, it's like, oh my goodness, like how it's even legal is kind of crazy, because again, these things were never even intended to be used in that way. So yeah, and then you got people on the benzodiazepines, PPIs, all that kind of stuff at the same time.
Hey, I know you probably have to wrap up, but
no, you got it.
Methylene blue. I was listening to something about it yesterday because someone asked me about it. And the guy was saying SSRIs, taking those antidepressants, there is no research, he said, that it was ever effective to have that, to block serotonin. And it really should be illegal. Correct. That doesn't do anything. And again, what is going on? What are you, because I know someone that is on it because they were depressed because they lost their family members. Is that going to really help you deal with that trauma of losing your family? Or does it work? That's like, why are people giving it?
Well, that's where the Western folks get mad at me for that one, even though I'm literally citing stuff that they can read. So first of all, the initial SSRIs barely passed placebo. And we know for a fact certain studies were omitted. But again, the pharmaceutical industry, what they get to do is they get to do whatever they want now and then deal with the consequences 10 to 20 years later. And they just buy themselves out of these lawsuits, but people still get affected by it. And then what's even nuttier is, so not only did it barely pass placebo, so we're talking like a sugar pill, guys, worked as well for depression as most of the initial SSRIs. But what you just said is 100% accurate. This was a theory and still is. When do you hear about a procedure where we go into someone's brain and measure serotonin and see it swimming around or something, and then we notice it going back and forth through the neurons? We don't know that. We think this is what it does. And that's also based off the thought that all depression is because of serotonin levels. So there's multiple things here that are theoretical. And then you wonder, oh, I wonder why it barely passed placebo. It's like, well, maybe it's not a sound thing. I think a lot of depression or depressive type symptoms, especially in my generation, is coming from being addicted to the phones. I wouldn't be surprised that like dopamine's involved with some of that stuff. And again, I don't think it's as simple as any one thing like dopamine or serotonin. It's probably not that simple at all, but that's just the point. The fact that we would make these medications off an idea, they barely pass placebo. We'll just leave out some studies and we'll make our way. And then yes, teenagers and people of all ages are stuck on these things for a long time. Oops, and by the way, there's side effects if you try to get off. You're going to feel like crap.
Yeah, a couple different podcasts to do on that. Bile, gallbladder, purpose of the gallbladder, the role of bile in the body, as well as a podcast on neurotransmitter production and how it's related to gut health and the vagus nerve. So it's not just taking medication. So yes, that's what we do.
Tony, I just wanted to shout out your comment really quick. Tony said, I'm an RN and worked in hospital and didn't know about that about gallbladder until FDN. I don't have mine. And it's like, oh my gosh. And Tony, thanks for sharing that. But it's like, it's kind of crazy again that we can do these surgeries, which is incredible. The fact that we figure out how to do this stuff without killing the person, that is actually a remarkable feat. But then we just say, Yeah. Tony, you're good. Don't worry about it. We'll just hope for the best. And, maybe you're not digesting fat as well. No big deal.
That's the biggest problem, I think. If you're taking it out, at least give them a piece of paper that says, here's what's next. Here's what to expect. You're going to have runny stool, poopy pants, and you can't eat fat. And this is what you can do instead. So anyways, it's a big area. I think a lot of people just need to understand not everything is for you. And even I'll add into the methylene blue I was looking at, it's not good for people. It impacts your TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, and estrogen. So I was like, okay, why is everyone talking about this? It's so good, but you just said two big things. So we need to work on working with a practitioner. Don't self-diagnose, self-treat, work with someone that can help you figure out what's best for you, because you are a unique individual with different stressors externally and internally. That's why we do what we do.
Yes. And if they would like to do that with you, where can they find you, Debbie? And please shout out your podcast as well. I always want to encourage them to listen to.
Oh my gosh. So website is very simple, debbiepotts.net. Okay. My podcast and Instagram and everything, I just, it's embarrassing, but I just made it simple. It's my name, Coach Debbie Potts. And if you want to go into all these rabbit holes, I've been going into a daily podcast that is more for my own. I wanted to get it out, so I did it for myself. But if everyone else likes to go down rabbit holes, I've been putting one out every day. But Tuesdays, I have a guest expert on the show that is a doctor, some expert in the field.
That's amazing. Debbie, I'm going to ask you our signature question here, and then it's going to be fun because if I'm bored later today, I will go back and see if this is different than the one that you answered with last time. So if we could give you a magic wand, you could wave it and you can get all of our viewers and listeners to do just one thing for their health. So that means you can get us all to start doing one thing, or if you'd like, you can get us all to stop doing one thing. What's the one thing that Debbie Potts gets us to do?
I'd say get out in the morning and get out in that morning sunlight and do your breathing, nasal breathing. We've been doing the box breathing 4-7-8 a lot, and just get out there and stack it. Breath time, nature, bare feet, grounding, and put it all together. Start your day.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Debbie. And I see quite a few of you still on. So if we could just drop a thank you for our guests. They don't get to actually see the people that are on. That's something I can only see as the host. And then I think Tracy can see it as well as the producer. So if you drop a thank you in the comments, we would really appreciate that. And Debbie, it was great talking.